All right, guys, I got a very special treat for you today. I've got my friend, Mr. Ryan Adams from the Houston, Texas market. Today, we're going to be talking about geographic farming. I'm going to let Ryan tell you, but he's developed a very, very profitable farm in a relatively short period of time, and he's doing some very fun things. Specifically, we're going to be talking about how you can start a farm, assuming you don't have one established, and how you can be starting it on a minimal budget to get it rolling and then eventually snowball it and start throwing some money into it. But Ryan, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Yes, sir. Good to be here. Always good. You're in my home state, and so anytime I get to live my Virginia roots through you.
There you go. There you go. Ryan, real quick, can you share your background in real estate and kind of what prompted you to get started in geographic farming?
Yeah, so I got into real estate. I'm in my 8th year. We had just moved back from California back to Texas with our family, and all my sphere was kind of gone. So I actually really started off in online leads and paid for them out of pocket, converted those in open houses. That was pretty much everything that I did. And then my sphere grew, and then I saw, obviously we see, I'm in a master plan community here outside of Houston that's got, right now it's got 13,000 homes. At the time that I'd started, it was probably more around like 8 or 9,000. I can't remember the exact number, but there was tons of realtors. In fact, my farm right now, there's 600 realtors that do business in that farm a year. But I remember going, hey, we moved back. I built my business, started building this foundation of sphere clients, past clients. Most of them were in that farm because that's where I was paying for that lead, for those leads. And then all my friends and people we built relationships with with our kids, with the family, we were like, hey, it'd be really nice if we could just get people calling me to do business. And how could we get more exposure in the area? So that's when I started making effort of going, how do I really pick up the lead source of this geographic area, farm it to get business. And yeah, that's when I made the decision to do it, because I was like, I don't want to drive. I don't know if you know about Houston, but Houston's like 4th largest city in the country, 8 million people. I don't have time to be driving all the way across the city and all that. So I wanted somewhere that was kind of close nearby. I mean, even kind of funny, from the back of my neighborhood to the front of my neighborhood, it's 25 minutes. So, which now is kind of my full farm. But that, that in itself is enough business there to be worked with. And we're doing about 1,000 transactions a year in my farm. So there's plenty of business to go around.
And Ryan, just to catch people's attention, if you're comfortable sharing, how much gross commission income did you generate from your farm this past year?
About $500,000.
So 500 grand from his farm. We probably should have started with that in the beginning. And before we hit the recording button, how many listing appointments so far this year, as of February the 19th, have you been on just in your farm?
I believe 16. I'd have to look and see to get the exact number, but I think it's around 16. And this year I haven't had any of my sphere or anything else. It's all been from my farm.
Okay. So if you're watching, there's a lot of agents that would love to go on 16 listing appointments for the year, right? He's gone on 16 listing appointments within, let's call it, a little 50 days into the year, just in his farm. So that's like now, right? So we didn't start there, but so real quick, one point I just want to make, Ryan, is farming something that you're going to start on Wednesday and see results on Friday, or is this more of a long-term play?
Oh, it definitely is a long-term play. And that was kind of where my first year, and again, maybe this sounds like small potatoes to some people, but my first year, when you hear farming, most people think one thing. They think postcards, mailers to your farm. They think that's what you do. And I thought the same thing as well. That would not be what I would suggest if you were starting a farm now, but that is a lot of times what you hear you should do. So I started that. I spent $6,000 my first year farming. Maybe that didn't sound like a lot, but for me, when I had not gotten any business out of that, I was fairly new into the industry. It was a lot, and I made $0 my first year. So then at the end of the year, it was like, Do I really want to do that again, or take that $6,000 and go on a vacation or do something else? But I decided to do it again. And I mean, $6,000, that's a pretty nice vacation you could go on. And I felt like I burned the money. Well, my second year, which was my first year was actually 2020. And that might have been part of the issue, was like, I started off pretty strong. COVID hit. The year actually did great that year, but it wasn't anything that came from the farm. But second year I spent, and I don't know, what convinced me to keep doing it, but I believed in the process of it, and I'd seen enough case studies on it. I spent around double of that amount, but then I doubled my ROI from what I spent. I spent around 12 or 13,000, and I made about 25K in gross commission that second year. And then literally the next year, I probably doubled my budget again, but that next year I made 250K in gross commission from my farm.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, so we're going to get into the tactics real quick. But before we do, give me the 3, 4, 5 things that somebody should think through as far as selecting a. So if somebody says, "Hey, I want to do the geographic farm thing," what are the 3 or 4 criteria points they should be thinking through to make sure they're picking the right farm? Should they just pick where they live? Should they just pick like a cool neighborhood? What are the things that they should be thinking about?
So first, I would pick a place that you can be involved in, whether that's going to be where you live at or not live at. It doesn't matter, as long as I've never actually had anyone go, "What address do you live at here in Siena?" Now, it does help when I go, "Hey, I live in this section of the neighborhood."
Yeah.
But I never had anyone actually ask me that question.
Be kind of weird to ask, right?
Yes, but where you live to me doesn't matter as much as wherever this farm is going to be at. Can you be consistently involved, show up, have full exposure to the people in the neighborhood throughout the week, throughout each day, if that's what you're going to choose to do. You always want to be in a farm area where there's enough transactions happening that you can gain some market share. So good rule of thumb is no less than 5 or 6% turnover ratio.
Now, how does somebody calculate that?
You would basically take, all right, how many, and you could go on, get your title company to do this for you if you can't figure it out, but you could get, and there's some other websites, but you go on, you circle how many homes are in the farm that I'm looking at, divided by how many sales have actually happened in a 12-month period. Sorry, it's the other way around. How many sales have happened in a 12-month period divided by how many total homes there are. So let's say in my farm, I have 1,000 sales happen per year and there's 10,000 homes. That would be a 10% turnover ratio. So the higher that turnover ratio, the more chance for you to have a higher market share. And then the other thing that I would say is depending, I would have a minimum, and really I think the number's 1,000 homes. You could do kind of like niche farms, like a 500 person or something like that. If you're in a rural area or something like that. Here in Houston, like I wouldn't touch anything that was less than 1,000 homes. And then making sure there's not another agent that's got like 20, 25, 30% market share in that farm, unless you're really ready to throw down some dough.
Okay, so ideally, I don't want to be going toe-to-toe with the dominant player unless I'm really committed and really have the budget to knock them off their pedestal. Anything else
Correct.
People should be thinking about as far as picking the farm? Because I feel like picking the farm is almost as important as what you do to execute.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are the main things, and just making sure that, like, look at the people, and hopefully this sounds okay, but look at the people who are actually buying, selling homes. And is that it doesn't mean it's impossible, but it sure makes it easier if they're in a similar, close to phase demographic of life that you are. So for instance, and this has nothing to do with farming, but like, let's just say you wanted to get into the luxury market, and we talked about this, but like, hey, I want to get in the 8 million plus homes. Well, you're going to have to go rub shoulders with people that are in the 8 million plus range in their lifestyle. So that means you need to be doing things that are that are in that same kind of thing in your farm. Like, so for my farm, it's pretty much families with kids. Our schools are great. And so whether the dad and the mom are 50 or they're 30, I'm in my 40s, it doesn't matter, but we're all in the kind of similar phase of life. So we're going to be rubbing shoulders with each other. And so as long as you can infiltrate yourself into the farm and be able to do that, then I think that's another huge proponent, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I'll throw it out there, even if because I'm thinking about my two farms, a lot of the folks that are actually selling right now are the baby boomers plus that are downsizing. So I don't necessarily relate to them in the fact that we're not in that like same chapter of life, but I would say know your avatars in your market. Ideally, if you can relate to them on a personal level, great. But if not, at least know that avatar so you can tailor your messaging to speak to them, to what they're going through, to what they're thinking, and what they're trying to achieve. All right, Ryan, so we got some criteria as far as how to pick a farm. Now, let's say somebody wants to start this. They don't have an incredible budget. Maybe they have a few $100s a month that they can allocate towards this. What are some of so like you and I both come from the same training where it's either you've got check equity or you got sweat equity. So we can either throw a lot of money at stuff, which absolutely works, provided you're doing it the right way, or you can throw a lot of hustle at something. So what are some of those hustle things that people can do to really get this going so that they can close some deals and then start doing some of the paid stuff?
The two things that I would probably say that I would do the most, and one is open houses in your farm. And it's not just doing like, hey, I'm going to do an open house. I'm going to show up to 5 signs around the neighborhood and then go do my open house. It's taking that open house and utilizing it. Yes, you might get to meet sellers and buyers from it, but it's utilizing an opportunity to market yourself as an expert in that farm. Again, I've been on 16 listing appointments this year, and I don't know any of the people that I wanted the listing appointment from. I might know somebody they know, but I didn't know any of them. And I go in there and they all have said, I always go, hey, why did you pick me? And they gave me a bunch of different reasons, but all of them unified said, we see your signs everywhere. Okay. And the signs they're talking about, I don't even put them out myself, but I pay a high school kid to do it. We're putting out 50, 60 open house signs a weekend, every single weekend. People don't know if that's my open house or my listing. They just see my signs everywhere. So now there's a million things you could do with the open house, and I could go into that, but like from a mega open house standpoint, the video content that you could put out there, you could take the video, you're doing an open house, even if it's not your listing, as long as you get permission from the listing agent, you do a video to market that home, and then you target it in YouTube for very low dollars. You're talking less than 4 or 5 cents a view, but they're seeing you. And the key to all of this, by the way, with farming, and I would say this, the number one key to farming is consistency. You cannot, which is pretty much in this industry, it's most lead sources, but you can't jump in and jump out. It's got to be like, I'm jumping in and it's a very long-term play, and I've got to be consistent with everything I'm doing. So I'm doing open house signs and mega open house consistently multiple times a month. Usually we're averaging doing an open house at least every weekend, if, on average 3.5 weeks of the weekends of the year, of the month. So that would be number one, would be taking open houses and figuring out any possible way that you can get your name out there through those open houses. The second thing that I would do,
Ryan, real quick, I'm gonna interrupt you. Sorry, man. I know you're rolling.
Yeah. No, you're good.
So I just want to point something out. So if you're newer or you're just starting out, do these have to be your listings?
No. No, when I first started, I didn't have enough listings. Now, when you get one, you sure as hell better like go hard at it because it's yours and you can kind of do anything you want. But if you don't have one, you can, if an agent called me today, and the majority of my listings that I have right now, I think we've got 15 or 16 right now on our farm. If an agent called me today and wanted to host an open house this weekend, almost snap call, I'm going to say yes to that because it's just going to bring more exposure to my home. But if you're, and we're in a different market than you are, Chris, like we don't have an inventory crisis right now. We're like almost a balanced market. But But no, when I started off, I didn't, but I almost act like it's my listing without saying it's my listing.
There you go.
You
I
know,
just want to make
people
that
don't
point.
know.
Too.
Yeah. The other thing that I would do is, one of the things that like I want to be known as is the expert of my farm. I want people to go, because here's the deal. When you go to buy homeowners insurance, or you go buy a car, or you want to get a reference in a really good restaurant, you're going to want to go to the person who has the most knowledge and education of that particular topic. When someone goes to sell their home, most of the time they want to find the person who knows the most about that particular area. And let me just tell you this too. This is when you gain market share too, because when people start struggling and they can't figure out how to actually sell their house, they're going to go, well, it's not working with my cousins as my realtor, so I need to get someone who's an expert in this neighborhood, and then they'll come to you. But it's consistently showing people that you are the expert of the neighborhood. How do you do that? What I have done is worked the best for me is monthly market reports, and that is a video monthly market report. I do it, and then I take it and I target it specifically to my farm. And I am now like I have people subscribe just to look at those market reports every month, just to let them know how their house is doing, how their neighborhood's doing, what the average price per square foot is, how many sales are happening, is the market up, is the market down, what's the interest rates. And so then I become their source for help, and they don't even know me for helping figure out, if where the market is for that. The other thing I'd piggyback on that is, whether it's your open house or you actually get a listing, is doing that same method. But I always have a listing video or multiple listing videos going with ads all the time to my farm. And again, I'm talking like $100 a month. I'm not talking like, even if I wanted to spend $1,000 a month on YouTube ads, it's almost impossible with the size of a farm, because there's only so many views available. But those really, if you literally just did those 2 or 3 things and did that consistently for a year or two, you would begin to see impact of what that's having, and you would start getting some calls.
1,000%. And I'll speak to the market video, because we started doing these recently, and I've already starting to notice the difference. So for my Central Virginia friends, you can go into our market stats, which is the back end of our MLS that basically produces the stats. You can pull the stats for your little geographic farm, like that zip code, that high school district, that elementary school district, and you can literally pull the stats for the farm, record a quick little market update video, and save that to your YouTube channel, run ads like Brian's talking about, post it in like that little neighborhood's Facebook buy, sell, trade group, right? And now, because you're the one delivering the news, you are the de facto expert of that neighborhood. But I love it, dude. We got to start the YouTube ads now that you're talking about it. What else, man? What else if somebody's just wanting to bootstrap it? What else should they be thinking about? What else should they be doing?
Now, if you wanted to add in, which we've not even done this, we've done some flyer door knocking of like a mega open house, but if you wanted to add in some circle prospecting, if you wanted to add in some door knocking, another thing is like just people want to know their home value. And so if you can figure out how to get, like you could do YouTube ads just on, if you're curious about your home value, click the link below and we'll generate a value, however you want to word it. I'm not going to get into that script, but that's one other thing I've done. I mean, the other things that we're doing are, do cost money. I guess here's the other thing I'd say that doesn't cost you money. It's just being involved in the community. And actually another way to do this is if your farm does not have a Facebook group, create a Facebook group for it. And maybe the Facebook group is Ask Me Anything, or Ask Me, like our neighborhood, we have one called Ask Me Sienna. And it's basically like, who's a good plumber? Who's a good painter? And then I want to be the person that goes in there and gives value to go, hey, here's a good person, here's a good person, here's a good person. So they start seeing that like I'm the person they go to. But again, it's like looking at your farm and going, how can I deliver value? Knowing the market, and you need to be an expert at the market too. Like you need to be able to answer a question like that. If someone's like, hey, how much is this section selling for? You need to be able to instantly answer that. But any ways that you can figure out to deliver value to your community, be involved in the community. That stuff's all free. After that, kind of out of my head, I'm thinking most of the stuff we're doing is going to cost money. But there's so much you can do without spending $1.
But it doesn't cost you anything but time to study the MLS, to be aware of the sales, to know. One of the habits that my wife always reminds me of, like, because we live in one of my farms, like if we're going to go out to the neighborhood, whatever, watering hole for drinks, I'm going to look at like what's active, pending, and sold in the last 3 months real quick. So that way, inevitably, when somebody asks me at the bar and I'm too old fashions deep, like, hey, what did such and such house sell for? You know, like I've got, at least I know what house they're talking about. Well, Ryan, man, I appreciate your time here today. I know we can go on for hours on this, and there's so much you can do. And it really starts getting fun when you got some money to throw at this, because there's so much you could do. But what parting words would you have somebody? What 2-3 pieces of advice would you give somebody if they're embarking on this endeavor?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is picks. I mean, like, the other part is I think every farm is going to be different. And you know, the way, the action, the target of how I'm going to target my farm and go at my farm strategically may be different than how you would. But whatever it is come up with a game plan and be consistent with it. If it's just, hey, I'm going to do 3 open houses a month, so for 3 weekends I'm going to do it. I'm going to have 60 signs out every weekend, and I'm going to do market reports. Pick that, do that for 6 months, stop, evaluate, see how it's been, decide if you want to scale up, pull back, try something else. But don't just do it a month or 2 months and think, oh man, it doesn't work for me where I'm at. Because again, I went an entire year, spent $6,000 and thought, and had zero. But the reality is I was setting seeds and roots for the future, the upcoming year, and I didn't even know it was there. And that's the other part, is like I go on calls all the time. I mean, I'll tell you the weirdest thing too is I've been on listing appointments, and I go into the listing appointment. This actually happened a few weeks ago, and this guy pulls out a folder, and he had saved postcards from like 3 years ago that I'd sent.
Yep.
Didn't even know who the guy was, but he had postcard. He went to a kid's event that I had sponsored, and there was some swag there. He's like, we just knew that we were ready to sell. We were going to. Kind of felt a little freaky stalkerish, but all that to say is I was planting seeds of 3 years down the road, and I didn't know it was coming. But had I stopped, I wonder what would have happened. So to me, the biggest thing is pick your plan and be consistent with it.
Amen. Amen. Well, Ryan, want to honor your time. Thank you for doing this with us. If you guys have any questions for Ryan, we'll link up his info. If you guys have any referrals for the Houston area, we'll link up his contact info. Thank you, my friend, and I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon.